And they run it here, and I don't think he got out. That's going to be a safety. DJ Hunter, 22, got in there. And a huge defensive play.
Pressure. Smith got away for a moment, but dragged down. DJ Hunter, Ryan B, both there, and it cost him 10 yards. Khalif Phillips hit in the backfield. Stayed on his feet, bringing it out wide, and from behind, brought down for a small loss. DJ Hunter ran him down, senior from Middletown, Ohio.
Welcome back to the Moonshine Throwdown podcast. Guys, rough week for Herd fans. I'm sure most of, if not all of Herd Nation watched what happened yesterday as Rice came into Huntington and beat nationally ranked, according to which poll you're looking at, upwards of number 15 all the way down to 21 in the college football playoff ranking, Marshall. At home, tough game to swallow if you're a Herd fan. We'll talk about all that goes into that. We'll give you some stats and everything. Trace is here with me. Steven actually is not joining the show right now because after the Marshall game yesterday, news broke that the FIU Marshall game was canceled and was instead replaced with Charlotte coming to Huntington to play Marshall on Friday. So short turnaround for the Herd, but even shorter turnaround for Charlotte because Moff is at home watching Western Kentucky play Charlotte right now as we record this show. So Charlotte's going to be on like a 5-day turnaround. Marshall at least gets 6. So, hey, if Western goes down there and literally beats up those guys, they could be pretty bruised up on a short 5-day turnaround. But we'll get into the Rice game real quick. But before we do that, we've got somebody super, super special joining the show this week. Somebody that's going to bring a really, really unique perspective on a number of fronts. Not only with the setback with what we saw at Rice, but also speaking to playing with a freshman quarterback in his first year that was really successful in his first year. To me, one of my favorite players that's come through Marshall in a long, long time. I really enjoyed watching him play his entire tenure with the Herd. One of the most versatile defenders that has come through the Shuey building, not only in the Doc Holliday era, but in the FBS era as a whole. Number 22, ladies and gents, DJ Hunter, linebacker extraordinaire, has joined the Moonshine Throwdown podcast this week. DJ, welcome to the show.
Hey, thank you for having me, for sure. Appreciate you.
Man, I'm really glad you were able to do this. I'll be honest with you. You're a guy that I wanted to speak to about stuff like this for a long time. You've been, like I said, one of my favorites to not only watch, but you've been really supportive and interactive with us over the years on the Moonshine Throwdown. And we really, of course, appreciate that. I know you've started a new podcasting venture of your own, so we want to talk about that a little bit. You got yourself another former player, CFL stud, NFL experience on the resume. Folks, Herd fans from a little bit before, not too much before DJ, but right before DJ will remember this guy. So DJ, talk to us about what you guys got going on, who the co-host is, and what this thing's all about.
So we just really wanted to dive into some, we're both active sports guys. So I was like, one day I was just talking to Neville Hewitt. I was like, look, man, I kind of want to just start a podcast and just get all of our former players to come on, friends. And then Neville was like, yeah, man, you the one to do it. He actually called me last night. He got a game today. They play the Raiders. He was like, look, man, I seen y'all's podcast. I seen you and Bazzy. He was like, I think it's going to be a big thing for you. I definitely want to hop on the show with you and just get it going. And, Bazzy, big time guy. That's always been my guy. He's a CFL experience, NFL experience. We're going to go on there, talk about life, sports, Marshall University, everything. We just kind of want to just give fans a different look into Marshall football because I know for me, the love runs deep for Marshall University with Doc Holliday, Mike Hamrick, Coach Gale, everybody who got me through the door. So the love for me runs deep. I literally bleed green. So I think it's gonna be good, and hopefully we just get some fans in there.
I think it'll be quite successful. As I told you, in a semi-private conversation, it's nothing that's we've got to keep behind closed doors. But anytime we've had former players or anybody that's close to the program on our show, they are among our most downloaded and listened to episodes. So anytime you can help bring fans closer to their team, closer to the players that they loved watching play, they're going to eat that up. I mean, they just are. And I think you are a really good guy to do that. It seems like you've spanned a couple of different eras, even though it's a normal 4-year thing, but you cover a lot of ground there. You cover the Cato era, you cover a little bit of the Chase Litton era. So you've got a lot of guys that you can talk to and reach out to. And of course, there are just an infinite amount of Marshall players that would love to come and just talk stories from their days of playing, whether they played Doc Holliday era or the Bob Pruitt era, or, heck, maybe even all the way back to the mid 80s, Jim Donnan, early 90s. You never know who you could get to come on the show. So I'm looking forward to it. I listened to the first show yesterday. Appreciate the shout out yesterday when I happened to see the news of the game cancellation, rescheduling. Appreciated that. That was pretty cool. So where can the people find the Twitter account? What's the handle? How are you guys putting the show out right now? Where can they find it?
So honestly, like I told you, we're new to everything right now. So we just be going live on the Twitter handle, MU Player Info. That's where all the info will be going out. Shout outs for former players, current players, future players to come. So that's where everything will be. That's where all the information, that's where you can get all the information at.
Understand, it's at MU Player Info. No underscores, no dashes, all one big long word. The podcast is called The Transition Podcast, if I'm correct, right?
Yes, sir.
All right, The Transition Podcast. Now they are just going live right now. Like he said, they're trying to figure everything out. But once they get it figured out, you'll be able to listen to older episodes. They'll be archived just like ours are on our YouTube channel, or maybe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeart, all that good stuff. It's just all about getting your ducks in a row right now. But you will be able to go back through the Twitter timeline feed and at least watch the replay of your episodes. I did that. I was trying to listen in live and I kept losing my connection and I could never stay connected. So finally, when I got back home, I just listened to the whole thing, scrolled down the timeline and found it. So that's a way they'll be archived, at least in the early going. But yeah, they'll have it out to all the major podcasting outlets soon enough. So let's talk about this game, guys. I know it was not the result that any of us wanted to see, not the result that probably none of us saw coming, certainly not me. It's a tough pill to swallow, and it's not one that we can really sugarcoat. Yeah, there are probably some positives that you can pull out of this game, more probably locker room type stuff that DJ will be able to speak to more so than Trace and I ever could. But as far as stats and performance, there are very few positives this week. And some of the stats that we're going to have to run down, they exist. I mean, you're not making them up. They're there. So to be able to say that this game is something that it isn't, you're fooling yourself. This is a bad loss. There's no way to sugarcoat it. And they happen. Bad losses happen. But as DJ will undoubtedly say, it's how you respond after that bad loss that really accurately depicts what kind of team you really are. So let's talk about some general stats. Trace, I hope you're ready. I know you got some notes. Let's get it going. Rice comes into Huntington, wins 20-0. The Herd gets shut out at home as a nationally ranked team. That off the bat is bad enough. That drops Marshall to 7-1, 4-1 in conference. They're still in the lead in the Conference USA East. The season is far from lost. That just puts a little bit more pressure on them coming up against Charlotte. We'll cover that. Let's talk about those indicators, Trace. Total yardage, time of possession, first downs, and turnovers. Those usually tell the story of the game. This one is no different. Marshall actually outgains Rice offensively and gets more first downs. The two telling stats are time of possession and turnovers. Marshall outgains Rice 245 to 213, which is several hundred yards under their season average. Time of possession is just a real eye-opener. 36 minutes, 26 seconds for Rice, 23-24 for the Herd. That means that Rice almost possesses the ball for an entire quarter more than Marshall. That is tough to win when that happens. First downs are close, 19-17. Marshall gets the edge. Turnovers, again, turnovers. 5 for Marshall, just 1 for Rice, and potentially a 6th turnover because there was a fumble on a reception to Devin Millard, but Artie Henry just happened to be Johnny on the spot and was able to pick it up, or that could have also been disastrous. Look, when we start talking about things in a historical context, some of these things you're not going to believe. Okay, outside of this week, Marshall came in as a 25-point favorite, whatever. Marshall was a 92% chance to win on the power index, whatever. Let's throw that out the window. Here's some historical context that really rings true and how you just can't call it anything but a bad loss. This was the first ever shutout at Jones C. Edwards Stadium in the entire history of the stadium since it opened in 1991. That is alone is mind-boggling. The first time Marshall's been shut out since 2000 when they lost 42-0 in an away game against Toledo. That 2000 team went 8-5, but still won the MAC. So still some positivity there. This was the first home shutout since 1982. Of all of you guys on the show with me, I was probably the only one alive at that point, and I was just a bitty baby. So we're talking about some historical times here. This is not anything that you want to be like, dang, I didn't realize that happened, but it happened. Rice goes for 127 yards on the ground. First time all year, Marshall gives up 100 yards on the ground on 46 attempts. They had a game plan, and it worked, guys. And Rice was without their starting quarterback and without their best wide receiver. So, they were a little bit limited on what they could do, but they were damn bound and determined to win this game on the ground, and they did that. So let's talk about the game. Trace, you've been awful quiet. What do you got to say about this one? Let me just get some initial thoughts before we get into stats, because I know this one does not sit well with you.
Well, no, I mean, it doesn't sit well with anybody. I mean, how could it? It was like you said, it's just the best way to describe it. It's just a bad loss. I mean, that's what I was thinking before we were going to do this episode. I was thinking in my head, this isn't a platform to come on here and just pile on and just, do stupid crap like that. This is a platform to actually logically and put out how the game went and give our thoughts, that kind of deal, not just a shooting from the hip kind of thing. Like, it's supposed to be well thought out stuff. And you know what? I mean, I'm over it. I'm over the game. I mean, it's not like there's nothing you can do about it now. I mean, it happened. It was one of the most inexplicable losses I've ever seen from Marshall, for sure. I mean, it just didn't make any sense because, they had a layoff, but the last time they had a layoff, they went and absolutely destroyed Western Kentucky. So it wasn't like, they had a little bit of downtime that they don't normally have, but they handled it really well the first time. So I was expecting more of the same this time. It just didn't happen. As far as the Grant Wells situation, yesterday, of course, he had a terrible game, but he is a freshman. And I mean, everybody always keeps saying, well, Chad Pennington had a 6 interception game his freshman year. So, I mean, you always have that situation where freshmen will ultimately look like freshmen. So, I mean, this was the game for him. I mean, if this is the worst game he plays all year, then, I mean, if he turns it around, then you can live with that. I mean, he only had 4 interceptions before this game. So, I mean, he was doing something right for 7 games. So, I mean, I'm not off of the Grant Wells bandwagon at all. I don't think anybody should be. I mean, it's just one game. Now, of course, if he keeps throwing 5 interceptions, then yeah, you can maybe start to a little more calls for pause, but I don't imagine that's going to happen again. And one thing I was talking with somebody I was sitting at the game with, is we were talking about how him and Talik Keaton were not in sync at all. Keaton hadn't played in a while. He'd been out, and it just didn't look like their timing was their timing was off. The whole first half, I noticed it just didn't look like it was going well. And I mean, you can understand that because I mean, Keaton hadn't played since probably, I don't know, October, mid-October or something like that. So I mean, it wasn't just that though. I mean, the whole offense was out of sync. I mean, we saw that. They came out obviously very flat. It just looked like it just felt weird to me in the crowd. If the crowd fell out of it, the team it felt like everybody was asleep, honestly, for a while. So, I mean, but to put it this way, you can't let this game come back and haunt you the next game. You gotta get over it really quickly because you can handle. I mean, yeah, fans aren't going to handle it well for the most part, but you can handle this loss. But if you lose to Charlotte next week, there's there's no handling that. There is no handling that well from anybody. So it's gut check time coming up.
Well, that's an excellent term to use. That's what's been stuck in my head the whole week, or not the whole week, but the whole evening, and today it's been that term, gut check. So let me ask you a question, DJ. Where's the mindset now? All right, we saw what happened. Where's the mindset from a player standpoint from actually being in this same situation? DJ, of course, was on the 2014 team that was the Conference USA champions that took that devastating loss at the hands of Western Kentucky in the final game of the season. And you had to go into that locker room after the game. Where's the mindset now, knowing that our season's not over? We still got goals to meet, and we can meet those goals.
Honestly, I think everything is still out in front of this team. You know what I'm saying? You got to have a short-term memory. honestly, Saturday, I definitely think they came out flat. We had two people out. We had Will Omer out and Josh Ball out.
Right.
And, we had the sixth best O-line in the nation, according to one of those sites.
PFF.
Before those two were sitting out. You know what I'm saying? I think my guy, the quarterback, Grant Wells, was a little rattled. Like you said, he threw those 5 picks. He got sacked 3 times. And just like the communication between Talik Keaton and Grant Wells, because he was out, the miscommunication. And then Rice really controlled the tempo. They definitely controlled the tempo. They had a great rushing attack. And I feel like those DBs were playing a little too far off, but knowing Doc, knowing Coach Holiday, knowing Coach Price, knowing the coaches at Marshall, I know they're going to be prepared and invested. I know they're going to get them going to where they need to be because we got the players. We got the staff, we got the coaches. So all we need to just go out and do what we do, have a short-term memory, let it go. Grant Wells is young. He's a freshman. He's a redshirt freshman. It's okay for him to have a bad game. So that next game, they just need to let it go out there, play Charlotte, and do what we do, play Marshall football.
Excellent point. We've said that every week leading into the preview episode. As long as they play Marshall football, they should be fine. 2020's brand of Marshall football has been pretty damn good all season long. So to catch one on the chin, it sucks, but it's not going to define the season, right? Because you still got to go out and win one more, and then if you win that one, you get a shot at a title, and that's what it's ultimately about. That's what they say it's about in Huntington. We play for championships, and in order to do that, you got to get through Charlotte next week. That's your sole focus right now, in my opinion. Let me ask you this, Trace. This is a tough question, but the question has to be asked because fans are going to want to know. Fans are thinking it too. Is this the worst loss contextually? Not just, it's 20-0. That's one thing, but what all was around being ranked, whatever, all that fighting highest playoff rank and whatever you want to bring into it. Is this the worst loss? Let's just encompass the FBS era. Is this the worst loss in the FBS era or no?
Oh gosh, that's tough. I mean, as far as like the result and everything, like probably not. But as far as like you said, the like meaning and like the situation and stuff, you could definitely make that argument. I mean, just because, I mean, it's what I said to somebody on earlier today. I said like this is what's going to end up being a 9-game regular season, and 7 of those games are at home, and Marshall was 7-0. So, like, that seems like a shoe-in for an undefeated season, and, like, people really wanted that. I mean, yeah, at the end of the day, I'd rather have a conference title than be undefeated. But if I could have both, I'd rather have both if I could.
Who doesn't want that?
Yeah. But, I mean, but, of course, I mean, the conference title is what really matters. But, I mean, that's what everybody keeps bringing up, too, is that Marshall always seems to get in their way, like in a late game, end of the year game kind of thing. It's like, it's always just, it's just inexplicable. And like, you just can't even explain it because, I mean, this is the same team that was beating everybody by 30 points a game this year. So, I mean, it really makes no sense. So like, I don't know where it comes from. I mean, looking at it like this though, I mean, yeah, they can still, if Marshall beats Charlotte and then plays at home for a conference title and wins at home the conference championship, that's a great season in my book. I don't really care if they lost or not.
Hands down.
That's a great season. And then, of course, you got to look at it like this. Even if they would have won that game yesterday and finished the year undefeated, they weren't getting the New Year's Six Bowl anyways.
Probably
because
not.
Coastal Carolina because Coastal just beat BYU and Cincinnati's probably not going to lose. So that was probably a very extreme long shot. So, like, yeah, you would like to see the 0 over in the right side of the column there, but I mean, if you can win a championship, that's really the only expectation its fan base has, and they still can do that. But it's going to take a lot to. I mean, they're going to have to get over this one real quickly.
Yeah. So let me ask you this, DJ. Based on what we probably know about this team, this 2020 team, the leadership that's on it, if a loss can be a good thing, and I'm not saying this one is good. But if this can be a good thing, is this a good thing? Do you see this as will have more of a galvanizing effect to the team and bring them closer together? They got humbled a little bit. They realized they're not indestructible and they got to refocus and get hungry a little bit again. Or is this more of like a letdown to where it could bleed over for the next week and we could see it against Charlotte? What do you think it is?
See, I think with this team, I think it's going to pull them all together. But if you're a bad team, it could tear you apart.
Right.
But I think this team's got a lot of leadership. Like I said, Tavante Beckett, he's a senior. I seen him went out with class. You know, when you're a ranked team and you lose at home at the Joan, which we don't do, he still showed a lot of class, shaking everybody's hand, like good game, showed great sportsmanship. I think this is going to pull them together, and I think they're going to come out next week and kind of make an example out of Charlotte and just let them know, like, hey, we still the Kings. We the Conference USA champion. We here to play ball.
Yeah, I kind of get that feeling too. I like the senior leadership that's on this team. Tavante Beckett's a great example. I think he does everything exactly the right way, and he's just an absolute freaking machine on Saturdays, without a doubt. Yeah. One of the best that I've seen in Kelly Green. Consistency is so key with him. It's amazing. You think, man, even when we touched on that Western game just a little bit ago when Marshall was on the long layoff, they came in and they dominated. Tavante Beckett had 2 tackles in that game. That was it. And he still was Conference USA Defensive Player of the Week because he had 3 forced fumbles or 3 fumble recoveries and a touchdown. So he's just so consistent. It's amazing. But guys like Will Ulmer, who was out, excellent leader. He was tweeting right after the game, we're short-term memory, we're putting this past. So the guys know where it's at. Their head is in the right place. Okay, so I'm with you. I think this is going to be a little bit more of a galvanizing effect. The one thing I want to say to everybody that's listening out there, the fans, are pump the brakes. You know why you think this is the worst loss or potentially think this is the worst loss? Because it just freaking happened. All right? Chill the hell out, let it digest, and just take a breath. So as far as responsibility for this loss goes, really, I got to go. To me, this is kind of like this goes all the way from the top to the bottom. And here's what I mean by that. I blame the conference a little bit, and I blame the AD a little bit for not being able to get a game on the schedule. So that Marshall didn't have a 3-week layoff. One other game, even again for FCS team, anybody, just being able to get game speed contact would have been uberly beneficial. And we see that now because Marshall was so out of sync. Secondly, you got to put a little bit of responsibility on the coaching staff because obviously the guys weren't prepared as they should be to be able to compete the way they needed to. And for the players, they got to take a little bit of responsibility too for being unable to execute the way they've been executing all year. So it's no one person's fault. I think everybody's going to shoulder a little bit of the load. And again, that's a cornerstone of a good team. Nobody's pointing fingers. Everybody's a my bad kind of guy, not a your fault kind of guy. So let's talk about stats, and we'll see where it ultimately fell short. Grant Wells, we talked about it, 18 of 35, 165 yards, no touchdown, 5 picks. Brendan Knox, 20 carries for 76 yards. It's a trend now. A couple games in a row, Brendan hasn't been able to go over 100 yards. A real shortcoming to me as far as the game plan. I think that Brendan should have been the workhorse guy, especially early on when you see it wasn't clicking for Grant that well. Do I want to see the guy get 35 carries? No. But if it's merited, should he? Maybe. He's the best back in the conference for a damn reason. Talik Keaton, leader in the clubhouse in receptions and yards, 7 for 48 yards. Xavier Gaines, vastly underutilized also, in my opinion, in this game. 3 catches for 40 yards, 13.3 yards per reception. Got to get X the ball more, man. He's just so damn dynamic. Defensively, Eli Neal leads the way for the guys, 15 total tackles, 4 of those solo, half a sack, and 1 tackle for loss. Darius Hodge, 14 tackles from a defensive end position. That's pretty good. 3 solo, half a tackle for loss, and 1 quarterback hurry. Brandon Drayton had a really good day, 9 tackles, 1 solo. Abraham Beauplan, 9 tackles, 1 solo, half a tackle for loss. And the man, Tavante Beckett, 8 tackles, 4 solo, 1 sack, and 2 tackles for loss. Look, let's talk about this defense for a second because we've been harping on the offense all episode, kind of. DJ, this is your forte, okay? If you would have told me coming in, Marshall's going to have 5 turnovers, Rice is going to have a defensive score, and they're only going to be able to put up 20 points. I look at that and I go, damn, that defense must have played out of their mind, right? Even in a loss, even in a bad loss. So you can speak to that. All these guys think, man, the defense just wasn't what they had been all season. Okay, well, let's talk about gifting Rice 5 extra possessions and 3 more turnovers on downs. Talk to me from a defensive player standpoint about what kind of 8-ball that puts you behind when you have to go out and continually take the field over and over and over and over when your offense really isn't helping you out.
I mean, it really is kind of tough. But the thing about it is, like you said, this defense has been playing lights out all year. This is a rock star defense. Number 2 total defense in the NCAA right now, really should be number 1. Number 1 is Wisconsin, but they only played 3 games. We played 7.
Yeah.
Right.
So this defense right now, being led by Beckett and Hodge, And the guys, man, this is a good crew. They've been holding it down all year. Nobody scored over 21 points on them. So anytime you can go into a game and nobody scores 21 points on you, and one of those touchdowns came from an interception, they're doing their job. That defense played lights out, man. That defense, I tipped their hat off. I tipped my hat off to that defense. This is the best defense I've seen probably in the last 10 years. This defense gives us, our 2014 team, a run for our money. This team is consistent. They come out here, they do it every single week. They show up and they show out every single week. This is a good defense. And for me to say that, know how much pride I take in our defense from 2014 and 2015, that's letting you know. And the guys that we had on that team, just think about it. James Rouse went to the NFL. Darryl Roberts went to the NFL, still in the NFL. Neville Hewitt, still in the NFL, Player of the Year. Evan McKelvey, Defensive Player of the Year. Corey Tyndall, CFL, NFL, still playing in the CFL now. AJ Leggett was one of the best players I've ever seen play. Taj Lettman went to the NFL. Tyquan Lang, rock star. You know how he played versus Purdue and everything else. Man, look, we had a great team. And this team is holding people under 21 points every single game this year. Every game.
Yeah. I mean, even this one, right? And I talked about it in the end. Starting out, 36 minutes of possession for Rice. This defense was on the field almost an entire quarter longer than the offense was, and they held Rice, honestly, to 13 points. 7 came off of a touchdown, a defensive touchdown. If you can swallow that for a second and go, okay, damn, maybe this defense didn't let us down. No, they really kept this offense in striking distance to be able to make a game out of it. But ultimately, Marshall just couldn't string a drive together. They just couldn't piece anything together. And it was tough. Special teams, they were down a little bit as well. Robert Lefevre wasn't in the game. We saw another kickoff get kicked out of bounds. This is a really, really bad habit for the Herd. Something that's got to get fixed. The punter this week was Dayton Montiel. He made his debut. So with Lefevre out, he's turned into a big weapon for the Herd. Marshall played with a long field all day. Rice lived around midfield most of the day, if not all of the day. So it's just it was not a recipe for the Herd to win. It was not going to be an easy road, but really, if you look at it, 20-0, it could have been a lot worse. Put it that way. It could have been a lot worse with all those factors. So, Crace, I know it's grades time. Let's talk about grades. And then we get to look forward to Charlotte in 6 days. What do you got for the quarterback this week? I know it can't be good, so I'm not even going to tee it up. Just give me the grade and we'll move on.
Well, yeah, it's definitely not good, but I want to preface this grade by saying I'm still a complete believer in Grant Wells. So
100%.
Just forget this grade. I'm still a complete believer in Grant Wells, but I gave him an F-. I mean, it's 5 interceptions. I mean, that's that's all you need to say. I mean, and like you said, not all those were on him. I mean, the timing was off, yes, and you could see that, but like some of them are just tip passes and just crazy stuff, and then some of them are the receivers not running the right routes or stopping on their routes or whatever. So it wasn't all on him. But I mean, 18 of 35 is, that's about 50%. 165 yards is just so. But I mean, you just can't. I mean, it goes without saying you can't have 5 interceptions and expect to win the game. And I mean, to touch on the defense a little bit more there, but before I get into the defensive grade, I mean, it's a wonder Rice didn't score 45 or 50 in this game with all those turnovers. So I mean, that shows right there the defense really held it in check. So, but I mean, yeah, I mean, don't get me wrong. I think Grant Wells is going to bounce back. I think he's too talented of a player not to. But, I mean, as far as this game goes, there's just, you can't really ignore how poor it was. So, Yeah.
F- sucks. Nobody's saying that Grant's not the guy. Don't get it twisted. He's incredibly talented, and he is definitely the future of this Herd offense. Pump the brakes. Take a chill pill. Let this one digest. You'll be fine. Offensively, no points. 200 yards really below the season average. It's not a good one, Trace. What do you got for the offense?
Yeah, it's an F. I mean, and when you don't score any points, it's kind of hard to give anything but an F. I mean, like you said, it's been 20 years since they had been shut out, and it had been, never in the history of the Joan it had been shut out. So, like, that's right there. It's just insane numbers to me. 245 total yards. I mean, that's not like outstanding, but it's not terrible either. Like that's enough total yards to think you would at least put up a little bit of points, but it just didn't work out because of the 5 turnovers. only 80 yards rushing, which was kind of surprising. Only little under 3 yards a carry as a team. Of course, when you got the two best linemen, arguably two best linemen on the team out, that's going to hurt the running game, and that led to a lot of those sacks and everything. So, I mean, that had a lot to do with it. But, I mean, I would like to see, of course, guys get healthier and get back for Charlotte. 165 passing, 4 of 12 on third downs was kind of, little lackluster there. 0 of 3 on fourth downs. That one fourth down early in the game where it was like 4th and 9 or 4th and 10, they had like opening drive. Yeah, he had like a 9-yard completion. So it's like, if they get that first down and go down and punch it in the end zone there, maybe we're talking a whole different game.
Completely different ball game.
Maybe they, get it going from that point. So who knows? And then time of possession, they were minus 13 and about minus 13 in time of possession. You're not going to win a game when you're that far behind like that. So, that's because the offense couldn't stay on the field very long at all. So couldn't string together any drives. So yeah, I mean, this was obviously a bad day really bad day for the offense. So I'll give them that.
Fair, man. All right. Defensively, we talked about some of those things being put on the field for plus 13 and yada, 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 but only giving up 13 points really. I want to drive one more point home. I mentioned earlier that Rice is the first team this season to go over 100 yards, 127 yards. They did that on 46 rushing attempts. Yeah. That means this defense held them to 2.8 yards per attempt. Still phenomenal over the course of a game, over the course of 45-plus carries. Yeah. What do you got for the defense?
Yeah, I give the defense a B. I mean, it was no doubt that they were not remotely the issue during this game. They weren't. I mean, only allowed 20 points. If you look, it says 20 points, but they only gave up 13. And, I mean, I would say if not all of those, almost all of those were off of turnovers, directly off of turnovers. So, like, I mean, if you want to look at it, they might have really only given up maybe like 3 points or something on their own. I mean, there's not much more they could have done in the situation they were given. Only gave up 213 total yards, 86 yards passing to of course they were playing with their backup quarterback. 127 yards rushing, and if you look at that, you think, well, Marshall finally gave up 100 yards rushing, but like you said, 2.8 yards per carry, so like that's nothing. So like the running game, they didn't beat them. The running game didn't beat them. They allowed 5 of 13. They held Rice to 5 of 13 on third down. Of course, they were put in some just terrible situations. I mean, all those turnovers. Rice was living on the plus side of the field, like you said. Marshall was starting inside their own 20 every time. They were inside their own 15. Rice was starting around midfield. I mean, that right there just screams that they're going to have a lot of success. One side's going to have more success than the other. And then the time of possession, they due to the minus 13 difference there, the defense on the field a lot longer there. I mean, it was 2 sacks and 5 TFLs as well, so they still kind of got the pressure going. But, I mean, you certainly cannot blame the defense at all for this game. I mean, they weren't, like, necessarily the greatest that they've been all year, but, like, they were still easily good enough to win this game. So I'll give the defense a B.
Well, how are you going to get pressure when you got 46 rushing attempts? If you ain't passing, you can't get pressure on the quarterback. Right. All right, special teams. We saw a new returner get some game this week. Rasheen Ali, he had a pretty good one, at least one good return I saw. But the kickoff out of bounds rears its ugly head again. And you know what? That was right on cue. You were at the game. I was watching the game. Yeah. And Jake Griffith, our buddy, was doing play-by-play, and he mentioned that. He said Jake said Cameron Shirkey has 5 touchbacks on the season, 6 kicks out of bounds. Bloop up, make it 7. Right on cue, it went out. That was to open the second half. So that's a rough way to start the second half with a kickoff out of bounds. Not really much to do on punt returns. So what do you got for the special teams?
Yeah, I'll give them a C this week. I mean, obviously there wasn't a whole lot good to take away from it. No field goal attempts or no extra point attempts, obviously. So nothing there. 2 punts, like you said, Lefevre didn't play in this game, so the backup punter had a decent day. I mean, 2 punts for 66 yards total. I mean, that is what it is. I mean, it's not like he didn't really get a chance to punt the ball because they were turning the ball over so much. Yeah, so, true. I mean, maybe if he got more chances, he might have had a lot better day. So who knows there. Only 2 punt returns for a total of minus 1 yards. That was a little surprising that they didn't really get going there. Keaton was finally back in there, which is good because he was first team all conference punt returner. So I'd like to see that. But I mean, he'll get back into shape there, no doubt about it. 19 yards per kick return for Ali. I mean, it was a pretty good day back there for him. I mean, he had to, like you said, that one return that it was pretty good. But then the kickoff out of bounds, because I remember thinking right as that second half was starting, I literally said it right then and there. Oh gosh, kickoff out of bounds, and it kept bouncing, and I was like, oh, there it goes, and it turned right out of bounds. I was like, no, like yeah. So that, I mean, but Lefevre had been the kickoff guy before that, so like they had success with that. So he was out. So needless to say, it's not going to be the same. But man alive, they got to get this time. They got to figure that out there. But I mean, yeah, special team. It was just a very just so day. I mean, they're usually a lot better than that, and had been a lot better than that most of this year. So give them a C.
Okay, here's where the rubber's going to meet the road. I don't know how much of the blame you're placing on the staff. Like I said, I feel like this is just shared responsibility. The perfect storm for Marshall to take a loss with the long layoff and everything. But what do you got for the coaching staff this week? And here's what I'm going to set you up with. We defensively we know it was good. They played the best of what they could do given the situations they were put in. Offensively for me is where I'm interested because I mean, just 20 carries for Knox. I know you go down and nothing's working, but that's got to be a higher number. No, I mean, if it's not working for Grant, it's got to be working for Brendan. It's got to. Knowledge McDaniel was back this week. He didn't get a carry. Sheldon Evans was out, which sucks. But McDaniel's been dynamic when he gets in the game. He didn't get a carry. So, what do you got for the coaching staff this week?
Well, I like how you said, the shared responsibility thing, and so I'm going to share their responsibility. I'm going to share it with the quarterback in the offense. I'm going to give them an F. I mean, that's right on par with. I mean, that's what I have to say. I mean, it's not necessarily as much about the game plan for me as it was just the fact that I thought they came out asleep. Like that's what it was more to me. They just looked. It just felt like they were very lackadaisical, just kind of going through the motions, just not really, it just even running out of the tunnel, it just didn't look like anybody was that juiced up. And like, I just didn't see that. And it felt like it felt weird in the crowd. Like it just felt like everybody was asleep. And like, that's more my issue is that, they had that 3-week layoff and I would expect them to come out and absolutely come out smoking because I mean, you're nationally ranked, undefeated. You feel like you're getting snubbed in the playoff rankings and all that. You want to come out and play it, fire it up, and they just didn't. I mean, it's not that they weren't ready to play. It just didn't seem like it to me. I really would have liked to have seen more adjustments out of halftime. Like you said, I mean, Wells was struggling, so maybe they could have tried to get the run going a little bit more. I mean, I know Rice was stacking the box like everybody else does against Marshall, but I mean, they could still probably have tried to push that effort a little bit more. And that's what I'm thinking too, is that you got to remember, it was only 10-0 at halftime. Marshall could have easily won that game from at down 10-0. Like, they easily could have won that game. So, I mean, I would have liked to have seen better stuff out of halftime there. They had, even though the 3-week layoff hurts as far as team chemistry and all that goes, they did have extra time to prepare for this game as well, and it didn't really look like it was that well. So, I mean, when a game's this bad and you want to, everybody's kind of got to share the blame. I mean, I just can't give them anything but an F, honestly.
I understand. And you're talking about if you're going to live with the past, to me, that also speaks to why does Gaines in the game with only 3 receptions? Right. Because he was moving the daggone ball. He was the only guy in that core tight end wide receiver room that was moving the ball consistently and in chunks. Yeah. And if that guy's not getting targeted 6-7 times a game, at least, I don't know what we're doing here. There's a lot of playmakers on the team. Corey Gamage is an up-and-comer, a real up-and-comer, and I think that dude's going to be a flat weapon, big-time weapon. But for right now, Gaines is that guy. It's not down the road. It's right now. So while we're not using, we talk about him being a mismatch. And linebackers can't run with him. DBs can't bodyguard him. He's got to be a bigger part of the offense, especially in a tight game like that where nothing is going right. So what do you got overall for these guys? And then we'll get us a little bit of a break and talk about how we can get the ship pointing in the right direction. What do you got?
Yeah, overall F. I mean, there's not really much else to say about that one. I mean, it is what it is. It's a 20-0 loss to Rice at home, and you're undefeated. There you go. I mean, what else are you going to give it? What else are you going to give it but an F?
That's fine.
I mean, that's what it is. That's what it is. You like to. you would definitely like to have seen them play better in this game, clearly, but at the same time, I'd rather it be now than if they play for a championship. I mean, I'd rather this happen now than in 2 weeks or whatever, or Friday night. I'd rather it happen now than Friday night, because you can't play for the one unless you win this one coming up.
That's right.
So, I mean, it is what it is. It sucks. No one likes it. It's terrible, but it is what it is. I mean, I just don't like I get it just gets old to see, like, you just want to see them finally start winning these late season games. Like, it seems like last year with Charlotte, or the year before with X team, or the year before with X team, or whatever. It's like, it always seems like it happens. And I guess it's aggravating to see, especially with this team, how great this team's been all year. Like, it was just, there's no reason in the world they should have played like that. I mean, it really isn't on the defense. And I mean, special teams weren't much, but like, they didn't lose them the game. You just can't turn the ball over 5 times. They have done a very good job with turnovers this year. They played clean football, and that's why they were undefeated for 7-0. So I mean, you got to get back to that. You got to get back to their identity, and you just can't. I mean, you're not going to win a game with 5 turnovers. Doesn't matter who you are. So 20-0 lost to Rice. It's an F. So.
Yeah, there's nothing you can say about it. It's a bad loss. Move on. DJ, come back in here and do us a favor. From a guy who's been in the locker room, who's been in these same situations, and been in these situations with Marshall, not just on a football team that happened at some point in your career at some level, but this happened to you at Marshall. And, you as a player, you really don't have the freedom to speak to the fans kind of the way you might want to for one reason or another. So, from a guy who's been there, from a guy who understands, like, we don't need to be told we lost. We understand we freaking lost. We understand that we need to refocus and win. So now that you have the opportunity and are not an active player with the Herd, you can speak to the fan base and kind of put it in perspective for them. So what would the message be from a guy who's been there, like yourself, to the Herd fans that might be overreacting a little bit about this one?
Yeah, I definitely think anybody who's just off the Grant Wells bandwagon or the Doc Holliday bandwagon, these guys have been having a great year all year. They put blood, sweat, and tears into this game that they play. They're going out there every single night, sacrificing their body every single weekend, every single day, mentally draining. So, just show them a little bit more love, man. At the end of the day, you play this game and you play to win. So Nobody's trying to go out there and they're trying to lose. Every single time they go out there and step on that field, especially in the zone with the tradition that we have, we want to win games. We don't want to lose. We win championships. I didn't lose too many games when I was at school under Doc Holliday and my defensive coordinator, Chuck Heater. We didn't lose too many games, man. So they just need to just relax. It's okay. We didn't get what we wanted. We're not undefeated anymore. Hopefully we'll still be national ranked, but I doubt it because the way they treat us. But just relax, man. I think everything, like I said earlier, everything is still out in front of this team. We still can win the Conference USA Championship, and we can still win our bowl game. So that's all that matters. We win championships.
That is all that matters. Take a breath. Let this one just chill. There's a bigger game now coming up in just a few days. This is the one you got to have. If lightning strikes twice and we're sitting here this time next week talking about another loss, then you can be a little angry because the 7 wins that led up to this ultimately will have meant nothing other than the enjoyment of the week, because you won't be playing for a title. You'll probably still be in a bowl game, but you will have let one slip away. The one thing I will say is Marshall is really, really good about making it interesting in the late season. They don't want to just grab that title spot around the neck and choke. They want to make it interesting. So they give other teams a glimmer of hope, right? So if Charlotte comes in and gets a win next week, that's going to open the door for Florida Atlantic to have to beat Southern Miss. So let's not talk about that, but we'll break down the game here in a second. Hang with us on the other side of this break. We're going to talk about the 49ers coming to Huntington on Friday night to play the Herd. It's the Moonshine Throwdown Podcast.
Here comes pressure, and down goes Hendricks. Boy, he paid the price from the backside. He never saw it coming. Shooting on through for the Thundering Herd that time was DJ Hunter.
All right, we're back. It's time to talk Charlotte. coming to town. The Herd owes them one big time. We saw the Herds let the East Division slip away last year in the game at Charlotte in rainy, mucky, dreary, crappy, cruddy conditions. The Herd couldn't get it together, and Charlotte beat them 24-13. If you want to talk about power index, there is no line on the game because it was just announced yesterday, and it's only 5 days away. So we don't have a line on the game. I don't know who. I would assume Marshall's going to be favored in this home game. Power index loves the Herd in this home game. 87% chance to win. Of course, they were 92% chance to win against Rice. So that Vegas still likes the Herd in a big way, giving them that 87% chance to win. I told you in the wrap-up of the Rice game that Charlotte is currently playing Western Kentucky right now, and as we record, that game just went to halftime in Charlotte. Western Kentucky holds a 17-0 lead over Charlotte. So things are not going well for the Niners at home this week against the Toppers. All-time series against Charlotte and Marshall, 3-2 in favor of the Herd. Charlotte, of course, won last year, like I mentioned, in 2019, 24-13. This is Marshall's first legitimate must-win game of 2020. If they do not win, they may not capture the East Division title. They will leave the door open for a Florida Atlantic to get the East with a Marshall loss and a win over Southern Miss by the Owls. As far as the West goes, nobody really knows. There's so many scenarios going on right now. UAB has an opportunity to win. They play Rice this week. If they win, I think they represent the West. If that game gets canceled or UAB loses, I think UTSA will win the West. And who knows where the game's going to be played. We all know how Conference USA and their wild, weird math likes to work. If we can go back to 2013 when Marshall had to go out to Houston and play Rice instead of hosting them for the Conference USA title game. So yet another reason to handle your business, Herd. Don't leave it in the hands of the Texas-based conference. So if you want to host the game, go out and win and hope maybe the game against the UAB Rice game gets canceled or that Rice gets another win. Before we get into this, we talked about it before, and we're going to talk about it again. We mentioned it just a little bit in the Rice recap. What the message might be this week. We still have DJ Hunter with us. He's going to continue to finish out the episode talking about Charlotte in preparation for this game. So I want to get DJ's take on this because he's, again, been in this scenario. It was a quick turnaround for them after they lost to Western Kentucky to turn around and then play Louisiana Tech in a Conference USA title game at home. This is a regular season game that Marshall has to win in order to even possibly get to the Conference USA title game. So, DJ, what is the message going to be this week? You've been in the locker room with Doc Holliday and a lot of those coaches that are still on the staff. What's the message this week in preparation for Charlotte?
I already know. The plan to win is infallible. The most prepared and invested team will win. You know, that's Doc Holliday's slogan. He lives and he dies by it. So I already know what it is. It's that game is over with. Scrap it.
Right.
We didn't watch the Western Kentucky film until maybe a week or two after the game. We didn't watch it. It's over with. So now they just got to go in, focus on Charlotte, get to that Conference USA championship, win that, get to the bowl game, and win that. That's all we focus on now.
So basically you're saying the coach's message to the team this week is kind of play your game, worry about Charlotte, that kind of thing?
Yeah, we can't be sitting there dwelling on that last game. We can't dwell on Rice because if that spills over and then we lose again, everything is done.
Okay.
Everything, yes, it's over with. So we just got to focus on what we got in front of us now, and that's Charlotte on Friday at 6:30.
So we all know you're a defensive guy, and a damn good one. So based on what we saw the Herd do, and from now a fan perspective, watching from the outside like the rest of us instead of being in the locker room and on the field,
right?
Where is the emphasis in practice this week with what you saw Marshall do or not be able to do well? Where's the emphasis? What are the coaches driving home? Where did we fall short that we need to fix in 5 days to get right to play in 6 days?
Well, we got to protect the football. That's for one. We got to protect the football. No turnovers. Make sure we protect Wells. Make sure he ain't back there rattled. We give him some time to make his throws and do what he got to do. And then we need to get B. Knox more involved. Seventh all-time leading rusher at Marshall now. One of the best running backs in the country. The best running back in Conference USA. I think we need to use X a little bit more too as well. Like you said earlier, he's our lead receiver, 25 receptions, 328 yards, and 3 TDs. That's Mr. Versatility right there. You know, he does it all. He can go line up at tight end, wide receiver, slot, in the backfield, play a little bit of quarterback. He can do it all, man. And then the defense really just needs to play great. Continue to keep playing great defense. That's it. That's the best defense in Conference USA. I would say the best defense in the USA. Like I said, they're number 2 in total defense, right behind Wisconsin. So I think that's all we need right there. We get those 4 things down packed. Herd is playing herd ball, baby.
Yeah, I mean, look, you're absolutely right. Even in that loss, the defense only allows 213 total yards to Rice, so they're still playing lights out. Even though they spent nearly 37 minutes on the field, they're doing a phenomenal job. So what do you expect to see, like before the kickoff, before opening kickoff? We're talking about swagger, we're talking about attitude, we're talking about hopping the step, juice, whatever you want to call it, however you identify that term. What do you expect to see from this team as they exit the tunnel on game day? When the smoke flies, when Thunderstruck plays, what's this team going to look like? Are they going to be reinvented and reinvigorated, or are they going to be, all right, there's a lot of pressure on us to get it done today? What do you feel?
There's no pressure. You the best. You're Conference USA king. It shouldn't be no pressure when they come out. They just need to come out, play Marshall football, and do what they do like they've been doing all year. Yeah, y'all had a bad game last week. It's okay. Shake it off. We ain't about to beat y'all down for it. I ain't about to beat y'all down for it. As an alumni, I'm still proud of you guys. You've had a great year. Top 25 team in the country, one of the best defense, one of the best offense, a great coaching staff, great players. Just go out there and do what you got to do. Y'all know what to do. Y'all got the talent. Y'all got the coaches. Just go out there and play y'all's game. Anything else doesn't matter. Shut out the noise.
Yeah, that's exactly, I think, what this team is thinking themselves. Because, again, you've been there. You've had to run out that tunnel after a rough loss. And you're thinking to yourself, we're about to go raise this trophy. There ain't no two ways about it. You're not thinking about not raising the trophy. It's like, I hate Louisiana Tech came all this way just to turn around and go back to Ruston. But we're about to raise this trophy today, right? And I think that's what the mindset is. We talked about this loss potentially galvanizing this team, bringing them closer together. And I kind of feel like that's what it'll be. So let's talk about some of these players for Charlotte that we're going to have to be aware of. And then we'll talk about a little bit of what we expect to see. So starting off with the offense, it all starts really with Charlotte and the quarterback. It's number 3. I lost my page. Let me go find it again. Number 3, Chris Reynolds, 5'11", 192-pound junior. Of course, these stats are going to be different now because they're playing Western Kentucky currently right now. But as before the game started, he was 82 out of 141 for just 1,100 yards, 6 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. He's been sacked 15 times through 5 games. And in all of 2019, he only hit the ground 17 times. So this offensive line is a little bit of an issue potentially for Charlotte. Got to bode well for the Herd defensive line. Number 22 running back Trey Harbison III, 5'11", 215-pound senior. 64 carries, 257 yards and 4 touchdowns on the ground. Equally as impressive, they got a second running back, Aaron McAllister, number 5, the 5'10", 216-pound senior, 37 totes, another 254 yards and 3 touchdowns on the ground. Mirror image backs of one another, really, both in their measurables and their production. McAllister's got a slightly better yards per carry average, but they got a two-headed monster down there. The wide receiver that everybody knows from Charlotte is number 9. Put a circle around him, put a big red dot and star beside him, whatever you got to do. This is the guy you got to stop. Wide receiver Victor Tucker, number 9. 5'11", 177-pound junior, 22 catches, 289 yards, 2 touchdowns. Coming into the Western Kentucky game, 13.1 yards per reception. Absolutely thrashed Marshall last year. You've got to stop Victor Tucker. Number 23, wide receiver Michaelius Elder, the 5'9", 165-pound sophomore, 18 catches, 245 yards, no touchdowns. All in all, this Charlotte offense is putting up 28.6 points per game and averaging roughly 390 yards per game. 223 of those through the air. Trace, what are we going to see this Marshall defense do in order to counterattack what Charlotte does well?
Well, I mean, I feel like I say this every week, but I just feel like Marshall defense just needs to play like Marshall defense. I think they just need to play their game. If they do that, then they won't have any problems. Because, I mean, Charlotte, yeah, they do have some, obviously, capability there offensively. I mean, Victor Tucker's a very good receiver. Reynolds is a good quarterback. But at the same time, they haven't had they haven't played a whole lot of games this year. They probably aren't in sync as well as they were last year offensively. I mean, Western Kentucky right now, I mean, there's still half to go, but they're beating them handily on the road. So, I mean, Charlotte is not as good as they were last year, and they weren't exactly a great team last year, but they were just, pretty good, 7-win team or whatever. But, I mean, if Marshall can just defensively, especially if the defense doesn't have to be on the field as much this week, that would be great. I mean, I don't really think I don't think they're going to put up a lot on Marshall's defense because I don't think anybody. I mean, Rice didn't put up a lot on them, and Rice had all those extra opportunities. So, I mean, if the offense can do their part from Marshall's side of things, then that'll make the defense's job even easier. Not that it's going to be easy because Charlotte, like I said, they do have some talented players offensively. But, I mean, I think if Marshall can just play the type of defense that they're used to playing, that they always have played this whole year, then that will be one aspect of this game where Marshall won't have to worry about it. I mean, you still might have to worry about the offense after last week, but I don't think you have to worry about the defense.
Yeah, I tend to agree with you. DJ, I just talked about it in the lead-in that Chris Reynolds has hit the ground 15 times in 5 games. I mean, Charlotte offensive line giving up 3 sacks a game on average. I'm looking at the stats here at halftime against Western Kentucky, and they are abysmal for the Charlotte offense. I mean, abysmal. They have right around 100 yards of offense. They have 106 yards of offense, and they've given up almost 3 times that to Western Kentucky. So, look, from a guy who's been in a game preparation week in a big bounce-back game type scenario, based on what we have been talking about Charlotte, what is the emphasis going to be game plan-wise? What are we going to expect to see from this Marshall defense other than just – as long as they play their game? I mean, is the emphasis going to be on the pass rush? Is the emphasis going to be on, containing the quarterback? Are we going to see a little bit more pressure, you think, from the DBs? Where do you think the game plan emphasis is going to be against these guys?
Honestly, like I said last week, I did see it versus the Rice game. I did see our DBs off a little far yesterday. But other than that, the focus is on us. We're the guys.
Right.
We're the team. We're who everybody wants to be. So I can't really give you anything else other than we need to do what we do. We need to go out there and do what we do best. No need to change anything. No need to be up in arms because, like you said, they only really scored 13 points on us yesterday. Right. 2.9 yards.
Under 3.
That's what I'm saying, under 3 yards per rushing attempt. We need to just go out there and do what we need to do. That defensive coaching staff, those defensive players, they're doing a great job. The focus is on us. We're the guys. We need to just go out there and do what we do.
So this is the first time I've been able to provide really real time as it's happening stats as we record a podcast. And Western Kentucky, a lot of Marshall fans are familiar with Western Kentucky because we do this podcast, because we run the Twitter account and all that stuff. So they know some of the usual suspects for the toppers. But let me put it in context for you. Charlotte right now through one half against the Western Kentucky defense, which can be pretty good. They've got a good defensive line. They've got a good set of linebackers. Through one half, Charlotte has 20 rushing attempts as a team and 25 rushing yards. They are getting shut down offensively by Western Kentucky. Absolutely shut down. There's been a defensive score by Western in this game. I mean, Charlotte is not showing any semblance of a pulse right now, which should – I guess it could be a little bit more of a positive for Western or for Marshall fans thinking, okay, maybe this Charlotte's not who we thought they were right off the bat. But just as I say that, Charlotte gets a touchdown. Okay, let's talk about defensive guys for Charlotte. Number 28 defensive back Ben DeLuca is leading the way. The 6'1", 215-pound senior, 41 total tackles leads the team. 27 of those solo, 2 forced fumbles, an interception, and 3 passes defended. Pretty good all-around DB for Charlotte. Number 5 linebacker Tyler Murray, the 6'2", 215-pound junior, right behind him with 40 total tackles, 23 of those solo, 1 forced fumble, 1 fumble recovery, and 2 interceptions. And will feature us a defensive end, number 11 defensive end Romeo McKnight. Big dude, 6'5", 260-pound senior, 19 total tackles, 10 of those solo, just 1.5 sacks though. But it is a small sample. Charlotte's just been playing 5 games, but still. All in all, this defense for Charlotte is giving up, on average, over 31 points per game. They're giving up over 400 yards of offense per game. Pretty balanced in the way they do it as well. 203 on the ground and 213 through the air. And those impact plays, Trace, we talk about as a team, Charlotte on the season only has 4 sacks, 5 interceptions, and 3 forced fumbles as a team on the entire season. So based on that, DJ, start us off. We saw Grant Wells have a tough day. There's no denying that. The wide receivers had a little bit of a tough day too. Tip balls led to interceptions. Nobody really had a big play. We couldn't get Brendan Knox going from an offensive standpoint. Based on what we're seeing here and what Charlotte gives up and how they give it up, what do you think we're going to see the emphasis be on for Marshall's offense? Are we going to see more of the run game, or is it going to be business as usual? We're going to try to gas you through the air as well.
I think it's needs to be a balance of everything. I think we need to get Brandon Knox going and get Grant Wells' confidence back up after that game that he had last week. So I think if they got that balance, come out there and do what they do what they've been doing week in and week out, we'll be fine. I'm not nervous at all about this game Friday. Not at all. Good. I think we're going to go out there and do what we do.
Good, because that goes a long way, with folks that are listening, because they're listening to a former player, like I said, has been there, done that, been in this scenario, and you've also had to do that in these scenarios with a freshman quarterback. So having all that experience and bridging those gaps, they're like, all right, well, he talked about how well the defense is compared to the teams that he was on, which were pretty damn good. And if he's not worried about it, maybe I shouldn't be as concerned about it either. Let me say this, though, and I'm going to set you up, and I know you're going to knock this one right out of the park because everybody in the world knows this. When you got a young quarterback and you're trying to build confidence in him and in his rebuild it in the passing game, what do they always say? Who is a young quarterback's best friend in the passing game? Who is the Oh, no. Like as a receiver, as a receiver, who's his best? It's the tight end, right? They say it's the tight end is a young quarterback's best friend, right? So who is the best tight end on the field? Xavier Gaines. Get the man the ball. Get the man the ball. Trace, what's your take on the Herd offense this week? What do you think it's going to be? What are we going to see? Is this going to be the Brendan Knox workhorse day? Are we going to see 30-plus carries from Brendan? Is it going to be a 40 pass attempt day for Grant Wells? What do you think? What are you feeling right now? What's your gut feeling?
Oh, well, my gut feeling would be, this isn't my gut feeling. This is what I want to see. I want to see Brendan Knox have a vintage Brendan Knox day. That's what I want to see. I want to see him go out there and, go for $150. That's what I want to see it. It's been a little while since he's had that. I mean, it's not that he hasn't been doing all he can do. It's just the situations haven't been presenting themselves to where he can get that kind of yardage. But on the Grant Wells side of things, I will say this about yesterday's game. One thing that I did, I mean, at the time, people were yelling, "Oh, take him out of the game." People were yelling that. But like the thing is that if you took him out of that game, then you're basically saying that we don't trust you anymore. Right. And it's kind of like the same philosophy as Dan D'Antoni in men's basketball. It's like whenever the three's not falling, you might miss 50 threes in a row, but he wants you to keep shooting them. He just wants you to keep shooting them because that's the game plan. Because if you stop shooting, then that says they don't have confidence in you, and if you stop shooting, then that takes away the threes that you do make. And if you take Grant Wells out, that takes away the throws that he's going to eventually make. So you got to show confidence in your guys. I mean, I didn't mind, keeping him in there. I mean, it would have. I mean, especially at the point it was only 10-0 or 13-0. I mean, that game's far from over at that point. But so I mean, I think Grant Wells will be fine in this game. I mean, he just got to get back to the basics. I mean, it's not like he has to try to do anything real crazy. I mean, just make better reads. The timeliness of the throws, the timing of the throws. I mean, I feel like now that they just played. And they'll have a short week. The short week actually probably will benefit Marshall because they won't have to wait as long to get back out there and redeem themselves. And they'll want to. I know after a game like that, there's no doubt they're going to want to get back out there and get rid of that sour taste. So I think they'll be fine.
Yeah, I think they'll ultimately be fine too. I'm with you and DJ. I'd like to see a very balanced attack, and you're gonna have to get Brendan Knox going. He's got to get going. Yeah. I mean. That really is. I'm going to steal an adjective or a saying that Moff uses all the time. I think Brendan Knox is the one that is the straw that stirs the Marshall drink. Yeah. I really love that saying, and I think that's fitting. If Brendan's going, the Herd offense is going, and they once they get going, they're real damn hard to stop. So let's talk about specifics, Trace. Let's talk about the points to victory. Okay, specifically. Give me those 4 points and what you think Marshall absolutely has to do to go out and get this much-needed must-win win against Charlotte.
Well, first and foremost, forget about it. Forget about it. Like, the game's over. It happened. This Rice game, it's in the past now. If you keep harping on it, it's not going to end well. You can't let that, it's like Doc said yesterday. You can't let one loss turn into two. You got to get over it. I mean, you have to forget about it, because if it's in your mind at all, then it's going to probably change the way that you play the game, and they just have to play the game the way that they're used to playing it. They have to play the way that they've been playing all year. I mean, 7-0, they didn't get to 7-0 by mistake. I mean, they have to get back to that. Just forget about it, because I think that game's an anomaly. I think that game's a one-off. I mean, I don't think they're going to have a game like that again. But like I said, once you start getting in the trend of bad play or have a bad game, it can sometimes come back to haunt you in the future too. So, I mean, we're going to see if we're going to come out and bounce back in a positive, back in a negative way. I mean, we don't know. I think it's going to be a positive way, but I mean, it could definitely affect them one way or the other. So, but first and foremost in this game, above all X's and O's or anything else, you just have to forget about that Rice game.
Right on.
Have to. Next point is, I want to see a fast start in this game. They had a very slow start against Rice, a slow game against Rice, but especially a slow start. So you need to come out fast here. They're going to want to right the ship. They're going to want to come out there and just put that Rice game in the rearview mirror. They want to forget about it. So a fast start, if you could put up 14 points real quick or something like that, heck yeah, that's what you need to do. I mean, you got to, it's going to be it's an emotionally charged game. You're playing for a championship game appearance at home in all likelihood. I mean, pretty much guaranteed to be at home. So there's a lot riding on this game. So you need to come out fast. I mean, you have to figure it out. You can't let them, you can't get behind early like you did against Rice. So come out fast start. Next point is, which we talked about it before with Knox, establish the run. I mean, they've had a pretty good, they ran the ball pretty well against Middle. Like, it was more of the Grant Wells show against Middle, but they ran the ball at times pretty well. Didn't run the ball well against Rice. But I want to see them, establish the run. I mean, especially if it would take some pressure off of Grant Wells, because I mean, he's probably going to come out thinking that he has to maybe try a little harder than usual based on the circumstances, playing for a championship appearance, trying to get that bad taste out of his mouth. He might try a little too hard. And, that sometimes doesn't go always the greatest. So if they can establish a run, that'll take a lot of pressure off of Grant Wells. And, of course, it'll just make the offense run a lot smoother. So get that run game going. I'd like to see Knox go for $150 or more. That's, that'd be huge. My last point is play loose. Play loose. They've been playing tight lately. They played tight against Rice. I mean, once you get behind, you can just see it in their body language and how they're trying too much. They're not letting it come naturally to them, the flow of the game and all that. They need to play loose. Don't let it get in your head. I mean, if you play in your head, then that just changes the whole game. So let it just play loose, play free. At the same time, you had a bad game, but you got to remember this is still Marshall, the team that's the clear, head and shoulders best team in the conference up to this point of the year. Don't forget that. I mean, just play like you're undefeated. Just play like you don't have to change how you play just because you lost the game last week. You have to just forget about it. So if they play loose and just play their game, then I think they'll have no problems in this game.
All right. It remains to be seen. But I like where your head's at. DJ, what do you think? What's Marshall got to do to bounce back and get this win? What are your keys to victory for Marshall against Charlotte this week?
For my first point, like I said earlier, man, we got to protect that football. We can't turn it over. We can't give the other team all those opportunities and keep our defense on the field all day, even though they are playing great. My second point, get Brandon Knox going. Get the number 7 all-time rushing leader going, man. He's a big-time guy, NFL guy, and this guy is just going to go on to do great things. For my third point, I put get Xavier Gaines more involved. Like I said, Mr. Versatility. He's a guy we need to get the ball in his hands a little bit more. He's a mismatch. Like you said, linebackers can't run with him. DBs can't bodyguard him. Can't do nothing with him. For my fourth point, play great D, man. Do what they've been doing all year. The best in Conference USA, one of the best in the NCAA. It's a good team, man. They just need to go out there and do what they do. That's it, man.
These things haven't happened by accident, right? And Trey said it, Doc says it, the coach say it. You don't get good by accident. It takes a lot of hard work, commitment to team, sacrifice, and all this stuff. And to be able to do that in a COVID season where we have seen a lot of teams in the conference just get obliterated with testing and think Marshall hasn't had that. And that speaks to the team. That speaks to the commitment. It speaks to everybody being on the same page. Like, we're all in this together. Nobody's out, being places they shouldn't be. They're committed to the season. And now the season's coming to an end, right? So it's got to happen this week. So my points to victory are kind of simple. We're all like-minded in the thinking that it begins and ends really with the run game. That's my number one key to victory. Get back to the run game. And I'm talking multiple running backs, multiple looks. I'm talking Willie J around the end. I'm talking Xavier Gaines from the Wildcat or whatever they call it at Marshall. Anything, like whatever you got to do. Why are we keeping any plays secret right now? Because you got to have this one in order to get to the next one, right? Number two, it's the commitment to dominate the line of scrimmage. We didn't see that as well against Rice. For 7 games leading into this, we've seen this hurt offensive line bullying guys, like moving bodies and owning the line of scrimmage. And the same on the defensive side of the ball. We did see that to a certain extent. We talked about 2.8 yards per carry for Rice. We saw a continuation of the defensive domination of the line of scrimmage. But on the offensive side of the ball, you could definitely tell that there was a miss there with Ulmer being out and Josh Ball being out. It's hard to replace 6'8", 350. Okay, it just is. Now, I'm not saying anything bad about that youngster Dalton Tucker. He got in the game. He played pretty well. But Josh Ball is a legit NFL prospect for a freaking reason, right? And when that guy comes out of your lineup, it's not out of the realm of possibility to go, well, there's going to be a little bit of drop-off because not everybody on your roster is an NFL body, at least not yet. That dude is. Getting him back, hopefully, will be big. I don't know if he will or won't be, but let's hope that he is. And Ulmer as well. Number 3, at least from an X's and O's standpoint, the biggest weapon to me outside of stopping the run, which we don't even have to talk about that. Marshall does it phenomenally anyway. The biggest thing you got to do against Charlotte is neutralize Victor Tucker. He's the guy that gave Marshall fits last year. He's the guy that was able to make the big plays, go up and get the hard grab, and got the late game sealing touchdown against Marshall last year. That's the guy. Put a circle around him. Whatever you got to do, put your best DB on him. If he switches sides, that dude switches sides too. Period. Number 4, above just about anything else, this is attitude over execution for me. If Marshall comes out and is full of swagger and they're like, we got this game in the bag already, so we're just going to go out and have fun for the next 60 minutes. That's what I think we need to see. I still feel like Marshall could be -1 or -2 in the turnover game and still win this game. They don't have to play flawless football. They can have penalties. They can have a turnover, but they can't be turning the ball over at the 1-yard line when they're getting ready to punch it in. You know what I mean? We can see some miscues, and there's room for error. This Charlotte team is obviously not invincible. As I'm talking, I'm looking and keeping track of the Western Kentucky score, and Western has scored again. So it's 20-7 currently, midway through the third. Charlotte is absolutely able to come in and just get embarrassed at the hands of the Herd. And that's going to go attitude over execution for me. The last point I want to make is that Marshall should be the team playing like they've got nothing to lose, because Charlotte is going to come in with nothing to lose, just like Rice did. You know, they're a 2-win team, potentially right now as it stands, looking like they're going to be coming into Huntington 2-4. They'll have nothing to lose. So this is essentially will be their de facto bowl game, playing Marshall next week. This is the best team they'll play all year, right? So with that being said, regroup, prepare, play your game, go out and dominate the 49ers. You owe them one anyway from last year. Let's talk about a 200-proof player, Trace. Who's your guy this week against Charlotte? Who is the one that's going to be the biggest factor in the game?
I'm going Grant Wells. This is all I want to see him with a bounce-back game. I'm not going to put predict a number on how many yards or touchdowns he's going to have, but I want to see. I think he's going to have a bounce back game here. I could see him really stepping up. I mean, that's the thing that people have said all year about him, and I've said it too, is that whenever something bad happens with him, he usually just forgets it. He just moves on and forgets about it, and I want to see that. I mean, yes, he had a really bad game against Rice. We all know this. He's a freshman. You know, it was inevitable that he's going to have a game like that at some point, you felt like. So just forget about it. I mean, this what separates the good from the great, or the whatever you want to look at it, is that if he just puts that in the past and just forgets about it and keeps playing like he's been playing all year, then he's going to have a great game here against Charlotte, because I don't think Charlotte's got a very good defense. They don't. We've seen it. We see the numbers. I mean, Western Kentucky's already put 20 up on him in not even 3 quarters. So I mean, they're not a very good defense, and I think Grant Wells can really take advantage of that. Use them weapons he has out there. I don't know about Artie Henry. He looks like he has a pretty rough injury he had there potentially against Rice. I don't know the status there, but I mean, they'll have a lot of guys there. Gamage, Keaton's back, guys like that. So Xavier Gaines, of course. So I mean, he's got weapons to throw to, and I'd like to see him really have a big game here, or at least just. I mean, if you want to just say even a game manager type game, then that'd be fine too. That'll win you the game. So. So I'm 200 player. I'm going with Grant Wells. I think he's going to bounce back.
Yeah, I don't view Grant Wells as a game manager. I know what you meant by that comment, but to me, this is more about showing how much moxie you've got as a young quarterback. Like I got a short memory. I can bounce back. Y'all fitting to see why I was Conference USA Offensive Player of the Week 2 weeks running before we had this long layoff. I like that pick. DJ, who do you got for your 200-proof player? Who's the guy? Offense, defense, special teams? Who's your guy that's going to be the biggest difference maker in this game against Charlotte?
Man, I actually went with Grant Wells as well, man.
All right.
After that game he had, like Trey said, come out here, poke your chest out, man. You were just Conference USA Player of the Week. You're on the Davey O'Brien watch list.
Yep.
Go out there and get you another helmet sticker, man. Go out there and get you another helmet sticker. Go do what you do. Do what you've been doing all year. We rooting for you. We pulling for you, man. Go out there and play your game. Stay focused. Even when he had those 5 interceptions, a lot of quarterbacks that start throwing helmets, going crazy, cussing receivers out, everything. He still stay composed, man. I like that about him. So I think he's going to go out there and have something to prove and have a great game. I think he's going to have a good game.
I mean, like I said with Trace, that's a good pick. I like what Wells has brought to the table all year long. Nobody expected him to have the season that he had because, hell, we didn't even know he was going to be the starting quarterback until right before the season. So it's been a real surprise of how he's played, given that he's a redshirt freshman and, 7 games in undefeated. Tied Chase Litton for the best start to a career for a freshman quarterback in the FBS era. I mean, dang. You just can't shy away from that. So you're going to have bumps in the road, just like Chase had a bump in the road game 8. Both of them lost game 8. It's wild that those things happen, that the similarities happen in that way. So what do you do in game 9? You got to go out and get a dub. For me, I haven't picked Knox in a while, and I'm picking Brendan Knox because this just feels like this is going to be a signature Brendan Knox game. This is a must win for the Herd at home. This is a game where they need to get him going. It's also going to be a game where we haven't seen him go off in a couple of games. He's just due. And I feel like it's time for him to get that buck 20, 30, 2 or 3 on the ground type game. And, maybe we'll even see him start out like he did against UMass, like he did against Western Kentucky, big 45-yard run for touchdown, 50-yard run. Somebody go catch a block and he's gone. And that's exactly what Marshall needs to get this game off on the right foot. So give me Brendan Knox in a big day. Let's talk about score predictions. Trace, what do you got this week for the 49ers coming in?
Well, I tweeted this yesterday that I think this is definitely in my opinion, this is the biggest must-win game in the holiday era right here. Like, this is it. Like, this is the crossroads kind of game. And, we know that the contract situation about how a lot of things if he's going to, retire, if this is going to happen here or there or whatever. And this is a huge, huge game. I mean, it is like I said, it's must win in every way. If Marshall does not win this game, then this season's a wash. I mean, if you don't get to the Conference USA Championship game this year, there's nothing. Sorry, it's a failure of a season, in my opinion, if you don't get to this championship game. But I think Marshall will get it done. I think they're going to beat Charlotte. I'm going to say 34-17 Marshall. Charlotte's got they got a pulse. I mean, I'm not going to say they're like hapless. They have a pulse. Like, they're okay. I mean, they have capability. I mean, Rice wasn't exactly very good, and look what Rice did. So, but if that's completely different circumstances, they're not going to play that badly again. I'll be shocked if if Grant Wells throws 5 picks again. I just don't see it happening. I think Marshall's going to be focused now. Lays are focused. I think that hopefully that's going to be that game is a wake up call. Hopefully that serves as motivation to come out here and play as well as they can play. I mean, it doesn't even matter at this point. I mean, that's what I was saying before yesterday. I was worried about how much they were beating teams by because I was worried about their rankings. Now I'm just worried about them winning, period. Like that's, since that's kind of in the past, it seems like, I mean, they're still close to the top 25 of the AP and coaches, but they're not in it anymore. But I'm just worried about wins now. This game, it doesn't matter how much you win by, just win. Because if you win, you're playing, you've reached your goal, what you were trying to reach from the beginning of the year. Playing for a conference title at home. So win this game, and you're sitting pretty. So 34-17 Marshall, I think they're going to bounce back.
Yeah, let me keep it real for a second. At the beginning of the season, if you would have told Marshall fans would have said, man, we could be 6-3 or 8-3 or whatever, as long as we play for a title, I'd be good with that. So let's not lose sight of the fact that just because we started out 7-0, Marshall started out hot, ranked, all that kind of stuff. If you would have been in this position, if you would have said you would be here in August, everybody would be like, I'll take that. Let's just be honest. Let's be honest. So before I get your score prediction, DJ, let me give one more update about this Western Charlotte game. It's now 27-7 Western Kentucky. So I don't know if that's going to factor into how you feel the Herd's going to do against the Niners, but let me get that score prediction.
Like we used to call Cato and his crew, the 40 boys. 42-7. 42-7. I think that's what we're going to come out and do. I think we're going to come out hot, come out angry. The defense is going to play stingy. They might get one lucky one, but that's about it. So I'm going 42-7, man. 40 boys. Shout out to Rakeem Cato, the GOAT.
Yeah,
that's right. I mean, that's an argument for another day, especially when you're talking about the Herd fan base. You got errors, and nobody will ever put – or a lot of guys will never put anybody above Chad Pennington, and, for whatever reason. And a lot of guys won't put anybody above Byron Leftwich for whatever reason. But tell you what, for my money, if I needed one game, I'd take Rakeem Cato without a doubt. That dude was so fun to watch. Man, he's statistically the greatest for a reason. That dude could flat fling a football for real. I like Trace's line of thinking a little bit. I actually had the Herd 38-17, and the reason I give Charlotte 17 is for the reason I just said before. They got nothing to lose, so they can pull every trick out of the bag. They can try to set the Herd up and, to draw those PI penalties or whatever, and just to keep drives going. So ultimately, I think they'll find the end zone a couple of times, and one of those touchdowns might be a garbage time touchdown if Marshall comes out and dominates and then starts putting in the 2s and 3s at the end of the game. Whatever. But give me the Herd 38-17 and a trip to the Conference USA title game. Location to be determined, I think. I think Trace is right, though. Most scenarios will have the game coming to Huntington, but I guess it all depends on how the West plays out. So final thoughts time, guys. Like I told you, DJ, this is your opportunity. You say take as much time as you want. There's no time limit on this. You can talk football. You can talk life. You can talk about whatever you want to talk about. This is just your opportunity to get your message out there, whether it be team related or not. It doesn't matter. So what do you got this week as we close out this episode? Take us away with some final thoughts.
Nothing much, man. Just shout out to Marshall University. Shout out to Doc, Mike Hamrick, Dr. Cobb. That was my president when I was there. Just the university, my teammates, my guys I talk to almost every day, Daryl Roberts, Neville Hewitt, Taj Letman, Jack Gammon. Shout out to all those guys, man. That's it. Just, I'm a deep Herd guy. I love them. I love them to death. I love those guys to death. I probably talk to them every single day. So it's all love just for them. And that's really about it, man. Shout out to my guys. Shout out to my whole team.
Again, don't forget about the Transition Podcast. Find it and follow it on Twitter at MUPlayerInfo. DJ and Alex did a tremendously good job in their first episode. It was a lot of fun to watch, a lot of fun to listen to. They had a really good vibe, a really good flow, and I know it's only just going to get better and better and better as they get used to their own format and fall into their own style. I mean, it was good from the get-go, so be sure to go follow that on Twitter. And I'm sure they will be tweeting it out as the show gets put on more outlets, so you can listen to it on, whenever. But everything will be archived on their YouTube channel. So I'm sure DJ will be glad to tweet out the link to that so you can follow the YouTube channel as well. I'm tremendously happy to have you on the show. Like I said at the very beginning, you are a dude I've been wanting to talk to for a long, long time. I just loved your approach to the game. I loved how you played the game. always so heated and passionate, and let that heart on the sleeve. I loved it. If Marshall could have a team full of DJ Hunters, they may never lose a game. That's the type of intensity that you brought. That's the type of mentality that they love in Huntington. Real blue collar type folks. They love hard workers, and they love guys that are willing to get their hands dirty, do the dirty work, and bring their lunch pail to work every day. That's something that I appreciate as well. So thank you so much for joining the show. Anytime you want to come back on, you are absolutely welcome. We can even do this 4 ways if you want to get Alex on here, and you guys can promo your show, talk about whatever you want. I don't care. But let me give you a little anecdote before you get out of here about Alex. It was that game. It was the what was that? Was it the St. Petersburg Bowl? Was that what bowl it was in 2011 or something like that? Yeah, when you played at FIU.
Oh, when he hit T.Y. Hilton.
Yeah, when he laid out T.Y. Hilton. So just a couple of minutes ago, you didn't see, but the listeners didn't see, but I had my mic muted and I was turned around here and I was talking to somebody. And who I was talking to was my son. He creeped in here and I thought he was going to come poke his head in front of the camera and start talking to the mic. He does that a lot. But anyway, Cooper's 9 years old. He's going to be 9 years old. He's 8. I was sitting in the hospital holding him, watching that ball game when Alex laid T.Y. Hilton out. So Cooper was 1 day old when I watched Alex lay T.Y. Hilton out.
Look,
that's my anecdote.
We thought Bazzi killed this man.
One of the best hits I've seen.
Yeah.
Honestly, him and Tavante Beckett on that. I don't know, man. I think I'm biased. I don't know, but I'm a Beckett guy. I think he's a baller. He be laying dudes out each and every week, man. But I thank you guys for having me on here today for sure. Trace, KD, appreciate you for sure. For just getting me on here, just give me a little bit more experience, because we definitely needed it, because I know I was a little bit laid back yesterday, but I enjoyed it. I loved it. So anytime I get the chance to come on here and maybe talk to you guys, I will always do it. So thank you so much.
Like I said, you don't need an invite. All you got to do is hit the DMs or whatever and say, hey, man, I want to come on the show, and we'll make it happen. It doesn't matter. We did this on a day's notice, basically. Your vibe is your vibe, and I thought it was good. It was great to listen to. It had a great mixture of, stats and chatter and banter, and like I told you, one of my favorite segments was just right off the top of your guys' head. You're ripping off all these former players and where they're from, and I like the smile that was on Alex's face and your face when you're talking about all these dudes and you're thinking about your buddies, and when you used to strap the helmets on together and go to work together. That was fun, because for all the stuff I talk about Marshall football or basketball or Western basketball, I ain't never been in the herd weight room and lifted a weight. You know what I mean? I ain't never ran a drill. I ain't never puked my guts up on the turf because it's too damn hot in the middle of August. I ain't never done none of that stuff. So to be able to get a little bit closer to the program with guys like yourselves talking about that, fans really appreciate that. So you've been there, done that. You've walked on the, out the tunnel. You've done a lot of things that a lot of the fans wish they had the ability to do. We weren't blessed in that way, but we can live vicariously through, our guys that we used to love watch doing it and continue to talk about it. Trace, take us out of here with some final thoughts.
Yeah, I mean, it's awesome having DJ on. You were phenomenal, man. Really good. I mean, like Katie said, loved watching you play with the herd. I mean, those are some of the best teams that I've ever seen from Marshall. I mean, 2014 is still the best team that I've seen from Marshall in my life. So just awesome stuff there. As far as this season goes and what the situation right now, must win. This Charlotte game, there's nothing else you can say about it. I mean, certain games, you could come up with the idea that it's a must win, but in the real grand scheme of things, it's not a must win. This is. I mean, this Marshall team it has been way too good almost this entire year to not be playing for a conference championship. I mean, it has to happen. I mean, there's just no other alternative. This team is head and shoulders above pretty much everybody in this conference when they're playing well. They have to get there. I mean, and as far as the whole situation of whether the game would be in Huntington or not, I don't see how there's any way it wouldn't be in Huntington. I mean, it would come down to like a lot of different things. I mean, we know Conference USA's methods are very, very unorthodox, you might say, but I mean, on a good day, they're unorthodox, but I think it'll be for sure in Huntington. I mean, that would be big for the community, big for the program, the fan base. I mean, being able to have a conference title game at home after this crazy year and everything, and it's been 6 years, so it's time. It's time to get there again. It's time to experience it all again. It's here. They need to get it done. It's like you say, gut check time. All that kind of cliches you want to look at. They're all true. It's time. This is it right here.
Yeah, the time is now. You strike when the iron's hot, and the iron is hot. The conference championship is within your sights. You're one game away. And speaking of that, Western Kentucky is now up 30-7 in the fourth quarter against Charlotte. So you cannot let this one slip away, guys. You cannot let this one slip away. So once again, thank you, DJ Hunter, for being on the show. This was a lot of fun. I'm really glad we could get you on. You did a phenomenal job, as I knew you would do. I'm really looking forward to the next episode of the Transition Podcast, guys, at MU Player Info. Go follow it now. Trace, take us out, and we'll get out of here.
Go Herds.
I'll fill in for Steve. Go Tops. It's the Moonshine Throwdown Podcast. We'll see you next week. Later.